Hello everyone, and welcome to another Game Explained discussion. I'm your host, John Cartwright, and I'm joined by Steve Bowling, who's been playing Marvel Ultimate Alliance 3 The Black Order for around, I guess a bit over a week now. And Steve, what are you thinking so far? Like, what are your overall impressions on this game?
They're better than they were at E3, John. I'll be honest, and I think you'll agree with me. Marvel Ultimate Alliance was kind of the low point of E3 for both of us. But it's improved since then. I'm still not sure how I feel entirely about the game. We'll have a review coming tomorrow, if you're listening to this the day it came out, where you'll get my full impressions. But it is better. It plays better at home than it did on the E3 show floor, that's for sure.
Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, I've been playing it a bit as well, not as much as you have. But it was the lowest point of E3 for us. We're at a point where we're playing 4-player on one demo system, and none of us were having a good time. And I can't quite pinpoint what's changed between the demo build and the final build. There's just a few quality of life improvements here and there, but I think a big part of it is I find this game is just more enjoyable on your own. I kind of feel multiplayer is a bit of a hindrance for this.
I couldn't agree more. I played through it. For review purposes, I did try multiplayer, and it kind of threw me back a little bit to the things I didn't like about it at E3, where the camera felt a little too far away, the action felt a little bit too chaotic. I was having more difficulty keeping up when I had another player in the mix than I did when I was on my own and had control over all 4 heroes in my squad.
I think a good point to mention too is this, when you're playing on your own, you can sort of swap between all 4 characters at once. And this game, just the nature of this game is a little repetitive. Not necessarily a bad thing. But when you're playing on your own, because you can just change your heroes on the fly, I think you have a bit more versatility, whereas when you're playing with other people, you're kind of just stuck to that one character, which I think is just inherently a little bit more restrictive.
Absolutely. The heroes are varied in a sense, but they all kind of have the same basic control scheme. You have a light hit, a hard hit, you have some special abilities, and you have what they call a synergy move, where you can team up with other heroes to use some of those abilities in unison. But when you're playing as one hero, it gets very repetitive very quickly. And I think the key to enjoying the game really is to be able to switch between any hero you want, because the roster's pretty huge, but any one hero starts to wear thin after a long amount of time. But
it is a big roster, and they just kind of keep throwing characters at you. Like right at the start, I thought it'd be a bit of a slow opening, because it starts off with the Guardians of the Galaxy. And by the way, all these characters are quite clearly based off their MCU counterparts. So Rocket sounds just like Rocket in the movies. Nebula sounds like Karen Gillan. They're like trying to impersonate their MCU characters, in a sense. I mean, there's a balance. Some of them are a bit more like their comic book counterparts. But anyway, you start off as the Guardians of the Galaxy. It doesn't take very long to meet Spider-Man. And then, soon after that, they basically throw everyone at you. Like, you're on this sort of, like, I guess, like, space prison, and all of a sudden, there's the entirety of the Avengers there with you. Then you get all these other characters. There's Wolverine. Then there's a bunch of villains just scattered around. So, if you're a Marvel fan, it will not take long at all until you find your favorite character, because they are literally thrown at you every couple of minutes.
Yeah, absolutely. Like you said, it begins, you're in space, and it's like, bam, here's all the Infinity Stones, and we're giving you the main thrust of the story right now, and it does a good job of pulling you in early and getting you, if you're into the more comic booky side of Marvel stuff, if you're expecting a more realistic, gritty take on Marvel like you get in the movies, you're not getting that here. This is 100% comic book cheesiness, and if you like that, then you're going to find a lot to love in Ultimate Alliance, I think.
I will say the presentation's really good too in the actual cutscenes. The graphics themselves maybe aren't the best, but the voice performances from a lot of these actors are really good. And I think Yuri Lowenthal, who voices Spider-Man in the PlayStation 4 game, reprises his role here in as Spider-Man in Marvel Ultimate Alliance. And there's quite a few other rather big actors who I spotted in this game. See, a lot of them I think are directed to sound like their MCU versions, but many of them are reprising their roles from prior adaptations, which is quite cool to see in this kind of game.
Right. It's kind of what I wish that Square would have done for the Avengers project that they're working on. Nobody here is immediately recognizable as like someone from another game. They sound, the ones that are hugely recognizable, like Iron Man, Rocket Raccoon, Spider-Man, they all sound close enough to other representations of that character in other media that it's not jarring to hear them. And the ones that maybe you haven't heard of so much don't sound like they're playing, a character that they've done somewhere else before. I really actually enjoyed how all these characters were brought to life from a voice acting perspective. They sound great, and like you said, those cutscenes are really entertaining. They're actually really fun to watch.
From beginning to end, do you think there's a good balance of Marvel characters, or do they sort of rely on just the same couple for the main story?
No, there's a really good balance. So one thing, and it's a pet peeve of mine, but it's literally technically impossible to do, but in the cutscenes, you'll always get like certain Marvel characters that fit that level. So if I'm playing like Spider-Man, Venom, and Wolverine in a level that would probably better fit Iron Man and Thor, I'll see Iron Man and Thor in the cutscene, even though they're not in my squad. But they do cycle through. It's not just the big names. Like, I know I just mentioned nothing but like very recognizable Marvel characters, but the lesser characters in there, like Crystal, who is part of the new Avengers, or some of the other Inhumans, and like from other, like, I don't want to say B tier, but like less recognized Marvel properties, they're in there, and they all contribute a part to the story. If it's a character that is selectable and on your roster, I guarantee you they're in a cutscene that makes that is important to the story at some point.
And I think the story might be part of the reason why it's more enjoyable to play the full version over the demo, because just the gameplay in and of itself isn't the most interesting. And I think the pacing and the story is what carries it forward. And when seeing it as a full package, I think the game's pretty enjoyable. And without the story, I think that might just fall apart a little bit. Because the gameplay isn't bad in a sense, it's just quite simple. But you will be doing the same sort of combos again and again. And while there is an upgrade system, I don't think it offers all that much in depth.
Yeah, so each character has there's 2 different upgrade systems. And they're revealed to you as time goes on, so you may not have reached where you get the second one introduced, but there's an upgrade system for each character individually where you can update their abilities to be more powerful or have a broader range of effect, and so on. Those aren't really very effective. I think I upgraded 2 heroes' abilities out of the entire roster, and I never really found a whole ton of value in doing that. There's a second one where you can... and I don't know if you found this, John, or if you got far enough in to have it revealed to you, but there's a second one where you can upgrade your entire alliance, which means the entire roster at once. And that one actually makes a lot of sense, because now you can give every hero like extra 150 strength, or an extra 10% damage on heavy attacks, or they get really into the weeds on how many there are, and I still didn't use it a lot, but towards the end of the game I did find that I needed to start looking at it and investing in it to not die all the time. But yeah, I would say that they're kind of the hero ability system seems tacked on. It doesn't seem like it needs to really exist, because you can play the game just fine without it. But the alliance upgrade system is definitely something you need to use to get towards the end game, if you will. But ultimately, like you said, the gameplay is just doing a lot of the same combos with different heroes and seeing what movesets you like best. I found about 3 chapters in that I'd already discovered that Spider-Man was one of my favorite heroes in the game, not just from liking the hero, but from a gameplay perspective, because he had some of the best abilities, in my opinion. So I think that people are going to find their mains and kind of stick to them, but like you said, without the story, there isn't a whole lot to really dig into here. They offer, in the sense of these infinity challenges, a version of the game without a story, where you replay missions with certain modifiers with no story context around them, and they're just not fun. I didn't really... I tried playing 1 or 2 of them, but you earn things that don't really matter, like costumes for Iron Man, which I still don't know how to apply. Or you earn little baubles that you don't really need. So, I mean, they're there for like the mega fan that wants to just get everything, but I'm not really sure how many people are going to be interested in that in the long run.
I suppose when you have so many characters, it's quite hard to balance all of them, and I have found that some characters are just better than others. You mentioned Spider-Man. His aerials, where he just sort of jumps in the air and just shoots a bunch of webs, I found that they can take enemies out, like, instantly, whereas if I'm punching someone on the ground as Captain Marvel, for some reason, that takes ages.
Right, despite the fact that she is much more powerful canonically as a hero.
Right.
Yeah, Spider-Man has that move. Iron Man also has a very similar move where he'll fire multiple repulsor blasts, but it's not as fast. But yeah, certain heroes, and plus then you have the ones that can fly or swing, and they can evade a lot more attacks than strictly ground-based heroes can. So it's definitely not necessarily balanced, and it does skew more towards the more popular heroes having better abilities, I think.
I think the point of Marvel Ultimate Alliance from the beginning, from this entire trilogy, is just to play around with your favorite characters. These are never meant to be the most in-depth games. And I've seen people say, like, as long as this is a Marvel Ultimate Alliance game, they're going to be satisfied. And having played as much as I have, I can quite easily say this is definitely a Marvel Ultimate Alliance game. Has all the pros and cons of the previous ones. It's still a lot of fun. It's maybe not, they could have made it a bit more in-depth, but for what it is, I think Marvel fans are really going to like this.
Yeah, it's not an offensive game by any means. I didn't hate my time playing it. I enjoyed myself, and I likened it to someone as like watching a rerun of a TV show you love. It's not enough to get you super hyped or excited, but it is enjoyable enough to keep you with it until it's over.
Here's something I want to ask you, though, actually. Seeing as you spent more time with the game than I have. How many X-Men are here? Because there's an X-Men DLC pack, and I think people want to know is just how prominent are the X-Men in the base game.
So that's interesting. I've not kept up on the DLC for the game, but there is... so when you select heroes, there are what's called affinities. So you can pair up your squad with heroes with similar affinities to get bonuses to your stats, right? And there is an X-Men affinity. That being said, there's not a lot of X-Men in the game. For instance, Cyclops is notably absent. You see him in the game, but you don't get to play as him.
Oof. Well, that's a DLC confirmation right there, right?
Yeah, basically. You know what? Let me grab my Switch real quick.
All right.
I want to speak more accurately to this.
We'll get a live check on this.
Yeah, we will. It also has one hell of a first load time. Yeah, that first boot on this game is a little rough. Once you get in, loading times are okay-ish. I noticed that for me at least, it hangs at 90% for like 30 seconds and then goes into the game after that. Okay, so from the X-Men, we have Wolverine, Psylocke, Storm. So we do have some good representation. There's 3 of them right there. Scarlet Witch, we have Nightcrawler, Deadpool. So we have a good number of X-Men to start with. So we have 6 X-Men, but we're missing some of the most recognizable ones: Colossus, Cyclops, Beast. You could make a case for Iceman, but yeah, we're missing. Jean Grey's not in here. She's a huge one. So I would suspect to see like Jean Grey, if not Phoenix, as well as, like I said, Cyclops, Colossus. I would even expect Magneto. The weird thing is, you see Cyclops and Colossus, and they even join you and help you out during the game. You just don't get them. So I would suspect those 2 are definitely in as DLC. And as I'm noting on my character select screen right now, I have 4 open slots in my character select screen now that weren't there before the update. So I don't know if that's just characters I missed, I failed to unlock, or if those are DLC slots.
But it's still pretty cool to have X-Men in any Marvel game, right? Because it's been a while since they were really represented. Of course, we had Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite, which infamously didn't have any X-Men. So even if a lot of them are reserved for DLC, it's still cool to have a few of them in the base game.
Right. And a lot of people like to complain about companies buying each other and acquisitions and that kind of stuff. But when it comes to Disney buying back all the rights to Marvel characters, I'm pretty okay with it. Mm-hmm. I guess the last thing I'd say is I haven't fully decided how I feel about Marvel Ultimate Alliance 3 yet. I have one more day to figure it out. It's so far it's a game that is enjoyable. I would call it basically good but not great. It's oddly a multiplayer focused game that seems to work better in single player. I think that if you approach it that way as a single player title, you'll have a lot more fun than if you try to hook up with friends on this one.
It's a good way to diversify the Switch's library, I think, having this big Marvel game in there. And if you're a Marvel fan, you're going to get a lot out of this. And if you're not really a Marvel fan, I think this might be a great way to expand that. Because there's so many characters that are in the MCU, but also characters that aren't. So this is a great opportunity to learn those characters. And I think that's what a lot of people got with the first couple of Marvel Ultimate Alliance games, is they were like familiar with Spider-Man, but then they got to know these other characters through these games. And in that respect, I think it does a really good job of that.
Yeah, I agree. Being somebody who read a lot of comic books as a kid but doesn't read them so much anymore, I did find a few characters that I didn't remember or didn't know about in the first place. So it was really cool to kind of check out some of these other characters, and it got me thinking about how Marvel might use these characters in other media in the future. So it is a good way to get to know a few characters that you might not see in the movies or in other more popular stuff.
And plus, you can have a team with Spider-Man, you can have Miles Morales, you can have Spider-Gwen, just a team of Spider-Man if you want that.
Oh, I definitely ran a Spider-Verse team at the very beginning. I had Spider-Gwen, Morales, Spider-Man, and Venom, because why not?
The dream team.
Exactly.
Alright, well, if you guys enjoyed this, we have our review coming up very soon, and probably a lot more on Marvel Ultimate Alliance as well. And until then, be sure to subscribe to Game Explained for a lot more on Marvel Ultimate Alliance and other things gaming too. Until next time, bye.